Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my review of The Adam Project. This is, of course, the Ryan Reynolds film, follow-up with Sean Levy, director, chap who directed Free Guy, and has now been announced to be directing Deadpool 3. Okay, we'll talk non-spoilers, then get into some rough spoilers with warning, just as a big heads up. This is an interesting film to kind of review because you can review it on multiple levels. Just as a singular film. Loads of people think it's a Netflix film. It's a Skydance film, which was then obviously, distributed by Netflix. It's important in some regards, no matter what quality of the film presented to us, to acknowledge that actually Skydance is improving. Now, that's not like a massive improvement, but it still is miles better than Terminator Dark Fate and Terminator Genisys. And, Skydance is making some pretty big moves in the industry, and they're improving as a studio, and that's nothing but a good thing. So I thought I would acknowledge that from the off before I get into, my true thoughts of this film. This film is not an exceptionally good film. It's not an exceptionally terrible film. And it's difficult to really praise the film itself because it started off with a lot of promise. The opening, 10 to 15 minutes of this film has a lot more promise than what the film delivers. It sets up an awful lot of potential, but then all that the film falls into is a very generic action film. And that's actually probably the film's biggest problem, is the fact that it does have a lot of potential, which just simply is squandered. And I don't know where that lies. It's obviously in the writer's room. It feels like maybe some of this was written for by committee, or the executives and the boards came in and said, no, let's change some of this and let's adjust some of this. And then they had to. Sean Levy's not a huge director in the industry. He's actually been around for a really long time. A very, very long time, actually. And he has a lot of really good producer credits. Arrival, for instance, is probably one of his best producer credits. But he has a lot in pre-production. He has a lot that is announced, and obviously he's been sat in the wings for some time, and now he's starting to get noticed. So, look, on a whole, this film is not terrible. It's not a horrendous film. It's a Hollywood generic, feel-good action film, right? That's what it is. And they have their place. They're not going to win any Oscars, but they have their place. You watch them on a wet, rainy day, like I literally just did, and you enjoy it, and you come away from the film feeling okay. There's no deeper, grander meaning behind it. These are kind of films that are considered popcorn flicks or beer flicks. You sit there with a beer or some popcorn and you switch your brain off and you enjoy it. Now, there were some clever things in this film, and let's touch on that now, because some of them are not horrendous, actually. Some of them introduce some relatively decent ideas. And they didn't hand wave away the time travel element just like that. They actually explained it somewhat, which I quite liked. So this film obviously centres on Ryan Reynolds coming back from 2050 and meeting his former self for a mission. He didn't intentionally meet his former self. There's no major spoilers. It's probably in the trailer anyway. And he just comes back to do something that he needs to do. Time travel reasons. There you go. Now, obviously, time travel introduces quite the plot hole in terms of, well, if you remember this, do you remember that? What occurs? Is it cyclical? Is it not? Is it linear? Etc. And they actually explain it in a relatively smart way, or at least it made sense in universe. The universe element of time travel made sense, and they stuck to it, and it worked out quite well. Basically, you have your time that you must be in. You have no purpose being outside of your time, and obviously anything that you do will adjust the time stream moving forwards. You can't bring someone from the past to the future, but you can move from the future to the past. So that's kind of how that works. And then they hand wave away the memory element of time travel in a relatively okay logic. They say nothing that we do now, I will remember. I don't remember this because you are in that time period and I've not gone back to my time period. Therefore, the memories cannot realign and adjust to suit the period of time which elapses between this time period and the future time period, i.e. your past self and your future self. You have to go back to where you belong for the memories and the subsequent time stream to align for you to then remember. I quite liked that. I thought that was really smart, actually. That was one of the only smart things. The rest of it was very generic. Now, a lot of people's complaints here is that, Ryan Reynolds is being Ryan Reynolds. He's always been Ryan Reynolds. Even as Deadpool, he is still Ryan Reynolds. That's why he was good at Deadpool, because he's a loudmouth and he's a wisecracker and he, talks crap. But it works. In this kind of film, you wouldn't want him in an Oscar bait film. You just wouldn't. It wouldn't make any sense. It would be quite tragic. It would be a great undertaking and a failure, I'm sure, from a director to try and get him to really act. I'm sure he can really act. But this is not where he's put to good use, and he doesn't need to be. A lot of people are like, oh, well, he should be doing blah, blah, blah. No. This is what it is. It's a Hollywood action film. That's all it is. This is a film which could have been released on the big screen, could have done relatively okay. Ryan Reynolds is still a draw. Now, in terms of the story and things like that, I don't want to get too into it for, plot hole, for spoiler reasons. We'll touch on that momentary. But I do want to touch on some of the cinematography, because actually, some of the shots were really well put together. Some of the lighting on some of the shots were really well put together. The use of lenses were really well done. There's a lot of... the focal lengths that they choose to use in certain scenes allows for a nice, crisp cinematic experience, which you don't tend to get. Netflix is improving themselves, of course, but this is being a Skydance, which was sold to Netflix. They're up in their game all round. Netflix is buying better products, and of course, Skydance is improving themselves. And it just goes to show some level of competency from Shawn Levy. On a whole, technically speaking, it's a competently made film. Some of the shots are really well done. Some of the effects are really well done. They're not, again, groundbreaking. They're not going to win any awards, but they are competent and they don't take you out of the film in any way, shape or form. I've seen some worse effects in bigger budget Marvel movies than I have this. And that comes from interaction with fake objects versus real life objects, i.e. Hulk in the Hulkbuster, or Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster uniform, or whatever. Those kind of elements there, those kind of shocking, jarring CGI, have no place in a big budget movie. And this isn't a big budget movie, but it didn't have any of that either. That's my point. That's what I'm getting there. The CGI was competently put together, quite nicely done, and we know that CGI can be done on a budget. We've seen it with some very low budget Russian films like Sputnik, for instance, right? CGI can be done on a budget, and it can be done well on a budget. And this pulled that off really nicely from, time-traveling space jets. The only thing which really did let it down was a de-aging scene, and that was really bad. Don't de-age people on a budget. It has no place anywhere. It's really, really bad. I did not want to look at plasticined faced. I can't even remember the actress, but it was bloody awful. It was absolutely atrocious. I don't want to look at Catherine Keener de-aged ever. Not like that. Not plastic face. It was. Yeah, that's gonna haunt me. That memory. That was the most emotionless looking Catherine Keener that I've ever seen. It was terrible. The acting across the board was relatively decent. Mark Ruffalo was fine. Netflix spoil the elements of this film in literally, if you just hover over it on Netflix, they spoil elements of the film, which once you watch the film, you'll go, oh, they've just spoiled that. That's a shame. So there you go. I was going to talk about spoilers. There's not really any point. Here's a rough spoiler warning, and we'll sort of touch on spoilers. But basically, just story. Ryan Reynolds comes back in time to save his wife because his wife disappeared. They're both time-traveling space jet people. Time travel in the future is there. They did open the film by saying time travel exists, but we don't know it yet. I always think that's an annoying plot hole for films, but I don't want to get into it because it's sort of an existential cosmic nature. Anyway, so he comes back. He doesn't intend to land where he lands in 2020 or 2022. Can't remember where it was. And he meets his former self, and he realizes, because he meets his wife as well, because she's there for some weird reason. She sort of sat there in the past, waiting for him to turn up, and realizes that it's a big government conspiracy, and Saurian, played by Catherine Keener, is out to get them all, and ooh, basically the story. It's pretty basic. It's pretty paint by numbers, but it's competently put together. Bit of a feel-good film, but they should have set something up. Well, they did set something up, which was a far better film, which they didn't deliver on, and I think that's a shame. But there you have it, ladies and gents. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. It's not offensive. It's a popcorn flick. It is what it is. Let me know your thoughts down below, though. If you're new here, please do hit subscribe, give the video a like, and please do share it. Thank you all so much. Take care.